All right, we're ready to rock.
Awesome. All right, you guys. Morgan, thank you so much for doing this call for our team. You are amazing. For those of you that don't know who Morgan Field is, she is an intuitive life coach and the author of the Amazon bestseller, 6-time award-winning book called Epic Sexy You. I have my copy right here. She's an entrepreneur who built her business from the ground up. And the Epic Sexy You brand is currently in 18 countries and counting. That's awesome. She's a global thought leader in the areas of expertise of entrepreneurship, happiness, self-love, and confidence. She works with clients one-on-one to help them create their very own heaven on earth, which, Morgan, you just moved to Miami and you just created that for yourself. I love it. Let's see. She is currently working on online programs for her tribe, and she hosts life-transforming retreats all over the world. Thank you so much, Morgan. Yay.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. So thank you for reaching out to me, Carrie, and asking to do this. Whenever something like this happens, it's something where I really just sit and take some time to figure out, what might be, what are the pieces that I feel like would be the most profound nuggets to share that I feel like really help people take their life and or business to the next level, right? And so as I was listening to everything you were sharing with me about the ladies who are going to be at your retreat, and as I was just sitting here thinking about literally growing something from scratch, because that's what we're all doing, right? Like, even if you're creating your heaven on earth, it's like a blank canvas. And you really have an opportunity to create whatever it is that you want to create. So when you shared with me, some people, maybe this is just something that they're doing part-time. This is something that they're doing for some extra abundance on the side. For some people, this is something that they're going to be doing full-time and they're putting everything into it. It doesn't actually matter where you fall in that arena. It just matters that you're in the arena. And that's what this whole thing really is about, is it's legitimately about putting yourself in the arena. Brené Brown talks about this a lot, right? Like being in the arena of life. And if you're creating anything that is going to inspire other people to take action, which is what we are all doing. We're all in the same boat of inspiring, especially as pretty much any person who is an entrepreneur or is a Beachbody coach or is creating a business. You have to be in the arena first. If you want to invite other people to come into the arena with you, the arena is basically where it's like, that is where you're actually doing the stuff. You're not just thinking about it. It's not the theory, it's the actual application. And so for me, I don't necessarily think about things like, what are the steps to get there? Although I'll share some things with you. I always think about, what is the adaptive skill you need to really practice over and over and over and over again, so that you have a muscle that allows you to keep momentum going. And the thing that came up to me is courage. When I help people create their heaven on earth, when I help people create abundance in a way that excites and delights them, which, who doesn't want more abundance? Abundance of freedom of time, abundance of money, right? Like really creating something, creating your business. The number one indicator that I see across the board in the years that I've done this, I also have done a lot of work with Beachbody coaches. I'm always really excited to see, it takes courage. It's the number one indicator that I see when people are really successful in business, in Beachbody coaching, in life, in love. Whatever you want to create, the number one indicator of you being able to create that is the muscle that you have in exercising your courage. Because it's about really being seen. It's about inspiring. It's about giving yourself permission to do it in your way. And so one of the things that I always like to play with whenever I'm doing, different coaching pieces, is a bit of that Socratic method, the Socratic dialogue. I want you each to, and so for you two ladies, as well as the ones that are going to be watching later at the retreat, there's a version of our mind that blocks us from, whether you're going to put a post up that says, this is what I'm doing. You're going to put a post up that says, I'm starting a challenge group. You're going to put a post up that says, this is my story. I'm a Beachbody coach, or anything that in life, it's going to require you to actually do the thing that is actually going to scare you. And we all have a version of our mind. You'll always see my hand actually go to the left side. It's on a mirror on the screen, but it's always the left side because for me, that's where my brain chatter always is. My intuition always comes from the right and my brain chatter always comes from the left. There is this, I call it the ninja mind. It's the version of your mind that tries to assassinate your greatness. It legitimately is the mind that tells you, yeah, but hold on, because it knows that you're about to leave your comfort zone. And your ninja mind, imagine like this tiny little ninja with samurai swords, and it does not want you to do anything that is going to feel like you don't know for sure what the outcome is, right? And so think about just Beachbody coaching. Think about it like everything that you do, you're not like when you, even just these little tiny pieces posting, it takes a lot of vulnerability and it takes a lot of courage. And I think that sometimes we have this perception that we need to take these huge giant leaps in order to get where we want to go, in order to grow our business, in order to create a team, in order to inspire our coaches, right? That's not true. It's the tiny little things that you do every single day. It's the consistency, it's the steps. And it's about really changing your relationship with your ninja mind so that even when you hear the yeah buts and the fear and the stories that your ninja mind is going to tell you, that you don't believe it's BS. Because that mind will lie to you and tell you it'll always story out all the things that could go wrong because it wants to keep you warm and safe. And yet, if you want to create, even if it's just part-time so you can create some extra abundance, one of my best friends does Beachbody coaching and she she's so excited because she's using the money to pay off her student loans. She's a nurse and she makes a lot of money and yet she understands the power of having that residual income to pay off her student loan. So whether you're doing it full time or whether you're doing it because you just want extra groceries or what, it doesn't matter. It's just knowing it is going to require that you have a new relationship with your ninja mind than what you currently have. Because right now, if you believe the stories like what are other people going to think? What is your mom going to think? What is that person going to say? That's the number one thing that I see with Beachbody coaches or just any entrepreneurs, right? Is caring way too much about what everyone else thinks. And so the process I'm going to walk you through today is a process that's actually going to change your relationship with your ninja mind because the ninja mind is going to keep chattering anyways. It's basically safety, 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 abort mission. But that, if you keep living life according to fear, you're never going to create abundance. You're never going to create happiness. You're never love. Oh my gosh. The number one human need, love and connection. You have to have courage you have to be in the arena. And you can't just think about it on the sideline. And so what I also want to say up front to marry this in your mind ahead of time, because sometimes our ninja mind needs to know why. Why is this important? Is I want you to know that it doesn't really matter what area of your life you start playing with this. You could start it with, you could play with this stuff with your Beachbody coaching. You could play with this stuff with relationships and love. You could play with this stuff. It doesn't matter where. It will impact every area. Because how we do one thing is how we do everything. So when we change the relationship that we have with this ninja mind, you'll start noticing you'll actually have more courage in your Beachbody coaching. You'll have more courage in love and your relationship, whether you're already in a relationship and you want it to be even better, which is going to take courage because you need to make some changes, or whether you're single and you want to create a relationship, or if you're at the beginning of a relationship, you're going through lots of scary things, right? Like everything requires you to have a relationship with yourself where you're consciously choosing to lean into fear. And we don't talk about this a lot in our society. It's not something that is hugely discussed, right? It's like leveraging fear to actually lead you into your greatness. And there's this quote that it's one of my favorite quotes of all time. It's in a book that Stephen Pressfield wrote. And it's a book where he talks about as you're birthing soul creations, which I feel like Beachbody coaching is a soul creation. You're basically taking your own piece that you want to inspire the world to love yourself, love your body, love who you are, love the skin that you're in, and create a life that you love living. And in order to do that, it's going to require facing fear. So one of the things that Stephen Pressfield says in his book is the closer that we are to our soul's fulfillment, the more resistance we will face. So letting you know up front that if you're experiencing resistance around growing your business or putting a post up or inviting someone to come join your challenge group or whatever it is that you're doing, that is actually how you know that you are on the path to your soul's fulfillment. That is exactly how you're on the exact right path to the stretching and the soul growth that will be absolutely required for you to live a life that you positively love living. So one of the first things I would like both of you to think about, and then for everyone who is watching and listening, is taking a pen and paper and just writing down, thinking back to what are the moments in your life, or what were the moments in your life, look backwards, that were some of the scariest things that you could think of. That you're on the other side of, I call it the fear hump, right? You're on the other side right now. Write it down because we're going to talk a little bit about it. I want you to think about things that before you did them, you were like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know if I can do this. And or your mind told you a lot of scary what ifs. So as an example, buying a house, buying a condo, leaving a corporate job for another one, or maybe leaving a corporate job to go full-time with your Beachbody coaching, having children. Just take a second and think and write down what are all these tiny little pieces and or big chunks of things that at one point were really scary.
All right, I wrote down 3 of them right off the bat.
Okay, so tell me what you wrote down.
Okay, so I wrote down leaving a bad marriage and starting over. I was a stay-at-home mom, so leaving that relationship and completely starting over from scratch, not knowing how I was going to take care of myself and my kids, and I did it anyways. So that was one. And then number 2, oh, you said all of them. And then number 2 was going from being a stay-at-home mom to going back into corporate America again, not knowing if I was going to get hired somewhere, if I was going to get a job, or if I was going to even like the job I would get. And then I wrote down leaving my full-time job to do Beachbody full-time. That was scary too. Because it was like, I had that cushion of a paycheck guaranteed, and now I'm leaving that, and now it's like all me. Everything I'm doing is just what I do, what I create. So yeah, all 3 scary.
Scary as hell. Like those are really big chunks that allowed you to really transform your entire life, right? So like the amount of courage that it took to step into each of those is unbelievable. So we'll play with these in a minute because we're basically going to start getting our ninja mind on board. We're going to bring some consciousness to our relationship with our ninja mind, because that's how we're able to actually, whatever it is that we want in life, we're going to be able to get, including however you want to leverage your Beachbody business. So it's, because everyone, it's going to be a little bit different, but you could use this stuff everywhere. Jen, what about you?
I wrote down 6.
Okay, yeah.
The first one is leaving a relationship where I lived with a man who had sole custody of his 4 kids, leaving that relationship, just getting up and walking out one day and saying, I'm going to go move into my own apartment, and I've never lived by myself. Just knowing that I was leaving kids that looked to me as their mom. Another one is quitting my career as an esthetician to become a full-time Beachbody coach. Another one is having a kid at 41 years old. And then just admitting fault has been really hard for me, but now it's like I do it every day.
Tell me a little bit more about the last one.
Admitting fault?
Yeah.
just when you make mistakes, before I would try to run and hide from them and pretend, I would brush them off or pretend it wasn't my fault or play the victim. But now, through a ton of personal development, I just eat the, what's it called? Eat that frog or whatever, and admit fault and move on.
Yeah. So what you're talking about, and we'll play with this later, is this piece around, like it's facing it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Again, it's the scariest thing that we can do in our ninja mind, is to face it. Cause the ninja mind's like, oh my God, but really it's the thing that actually set you free.
Mm-hmm.
Each of these things, right? Leaving relationships.
Mm-hmm.
If someone doesn't have that on their list yet, I'm sure you could go back to relationship where sometimes it's even good relationships. I left a good relationship because I don't want a good relationship. I want an epic and legendary love. Mm-hmm. And I know it's possible in every single fiber of my being, right? So like our intuitive body tells us things, right? When you guys look at your lists, was this something that, how long, so maybe going back, I want everyone to go back, so everyone is watching as well as you ladies, right? Go back and actually look at your list and write down next to each one, how long had your intuitive self, your guidance, your whispers, the knowingness that we have, those little hunches, your gut, whatever you call it, how long did you know this was something that would really be a game changer before you actually did it?
Okay, I think I know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what came up, Carrie?
So the one for leaving my marriage, I think that for me, well, I hate admitting this, but I honestly knew before I married him that I wasn't making the right move. So I stayed in that relationship for 11 years. But where it really became like very, very clear, and it was almost like I had this feeling inside of, if I don't do this, I'm just slowly dying inside. Like I would wake up in the morning and feel that in my gut. Like I was just sinking deeper and deeper. So I would say 4 years, long time.
Yeah.
It was like me trying to weigh out, like, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? And he was very controlling with money. And because I didn't have anything to my name, I was terrified. I didn't know what to do. So 4 years, I would say, of planning and trying to figure things out. So. And then with a full-time job, I think that before I actually left my marriage, that's when I actually started to look at my business as an opportunity more than just a hobby, because I was having fun being a coach and I was loving my results, and it wasn't anything more than just that and discount. And then when I knew that I was out of my marriage, that's when I would kind of like a light bulb went off, and I thought, this could be the thing that helps me get out of this marriage, but not only that, be able to stay home with my babies, because that was always something that was really important to me. So that was the scary part of leaving him, was like, who's going to watch my kids? Who's going to, take care of them? And so that was when that light bulb with, being a full-time coach came off too.
Okay. So I want to address something, because I feel like this is something that is universal, that we need to bring some consciousness to in order to have a more healthy relationship with our ninja mind. Just a more conscious one, right? Like our ninja mind's going to keep talking, but if we keep listening to it, we're going to stay comfy and familiar. And that's not going to grow money or love or anything. Comfort and growth cannot coexist, right? You can honor comfort in ways that are high vibration ways, but staying in your comfort zone and expanding, which this is where more money comes from. This is where more love comes from, expansion. We were built to expand. So when we're not expanding, we are not growing financially, we're not growing emotionally, we're not growing in any way, right? So what I love about what you're saying, and it's universal for all of us, is one, and Jen, I'm going to ask you in a second too to kind of see how these are showing up for you. One is we typically know from almost instantaneously every single person I have ever done coaching with that is like, I'm not really sure if I have a good relationship with my intuition. I always ask them, when was the first time you knew that you were, this is after they usually leave a relationship. When was the first time that you knew that you know, that this person was someone who probably wouldn't be a good fit? And they're like, the first day, you know, it's always like the first day, the first date, there were these red flags. So we see them, our intuitive bodies are telling us things. It's just our ninja mind is doing what you just showed us, Carrie. Our ninja mind's going, yeah, but who's going to do that? And who's going to watch the kids and da-da-da. Like when I went to buy, you know, my first property and it was like, well, what if you can't pay the mortgage and then you're home? Like for whatever reason, my ninja mind always likes to tell me I'm going to be homeless. I have no idea why, but it really likes to take it to the extreme and like all of a sudden you're homeless and you're living with your parents. I'm like, what? That makes no sense. But that was just, our ninja minds tend to repeat things over and over. So for yours, for 4 years, your ninja mind used your children as leverage to keep you in your comfort zone. And my guess is that's a pattern for your particular ninja mind because of how much you love your children, right? So it's just, we have to be aware of how smart our ninja mind is and what it uses against us to keep us in our comfy zone. Jen, what were some patterns in terms of time and stories that your ninja mind was telling you?
I probably saw the writing on the wall about a year before I left my relationship, and I ignored it, thinking that it was false. And the more time played on, the more my intuition was pretty much scribbling it on the wall. And then when it comes to, you know, having a baby, you know, at 41, I think that Carrie and I had done a goal setting session a year or so before that. And one of my goals was to have a baby, just one baby, and I wanted to have a boy. And it was always in the back of my head, but I was also living the single life and had no cares and no worries. And then when the time did propose itself, I was like, oh crap, you know, which direction do you go? But there was always that thing in the back of my mind that I knew that that was what I needed to do. But it was just the fear of what if.
Yes.
What else? And then quitting my career. I think that probably since Beachbody, I've always known that there's been something bigger. No, before Beachbody, I've known that there's been something more for me, and bigger, more that I can get, more that I can give. And I didn't feel like I should be strapped down to a job that allowed, you know, paid me this much money. I always felt like I should branch out and do something else, but I never knew exactly what it was. But once I found Beachbody, I still didn't think that that's what it was going to be. But then the more I got into it, and the more I learned, and the more I did personal growth, I think I just learned that things come to you when you're not exactly looking for them. And the universe is literally like, hey, dummy, it's right in front of you. Go grab it. And then, like you said, it's just your ninja mind that's telling you can't do it. But I think those are some pretty significant things.
Yes. And thank you for both of you for being so vulnerable and generous, because it's just going to help everyone who gets to indulge in this with us, right, and watch this, is to be able to get those live examples for themselves and those real examples for themselves. And a piece of what you're saying, Jen, is there's the intuitive body, the language that you use when you say, I know. That's a really good clue that your intuition is talking to you, right? I know. And pretty much everyone who's in the Beachbody community, there's that moment where you know this is the thing that you want to do. And the thing is that we often have amnesia on our why. I call it like your why amnesia. And so what we're doing right now is we're trying to just bring that back up, bring it back into your consciousness. Like you had an intuitive knowingness that this was something that you wanted to do. We all have intuitive, whether it's a relationship that we're entering, whether it's Beachbody coaching, it doesn't matter. Like it's understanding that we know that we want something. It's just, we sometimes get tripped up by the how. How am I going to do this? Or like, you know, Jen, you just said you knew that you wanted to manifest something that was bigger than a position that had a ceiling, right? I felt the same way in the corporate world. I felt like I was in a box. I'm like this bird. I want to fly, but I was like in a box, you know? And it was a bigger box than most people, I guess, right? Because like I had, you know, my ceiling was pretty high, but I like a challenge. Like I wanted it to be higher. I just like wanted to burst right through that and go higher and higher and higher. It's one of my whys that I left the corporate world and a really lucrative, cushy position to go into doing something from scratch, right? Like that's why I share with people, I started this thing from scratch. I'm in 18 countries. You know what I mean? Like, and I started it from scratch. So when I'm telling you that courage is it's like, that everyone wants to know that magic bullet. The magic bullet is courage. But the thing is, you can't just shoot it once. You have to shoot it over and over and over. It's a muscle. It's, you know, it's the same thing as you can't just work out one time and expect the muscle to be work. You know, like that's the really cool thing too about Beachbody coaching is what you're doing with your body is something you need to be doing with your business. If you're working out every day, great. How are you working out your courage muscle and or your business muscle every single day? Because that's what it needs. And so the other thing too is, this happens a lot, is we know what we want and we actually start to manifest it. You know, Jen, you were saying, you know, you really wanted something that allowed you to be able to express yourself in a more full way, and didn't feel capped. And then Beachbody shows up, right? The universe is like, hello, here's a how. And the thing is that that's really common. And I'm experiencing that right now in dating, right? Where it's just like, I knew exactly how I wanted to feel. And then someone showed up. And guess what happens when you start getting what you want? Anyone want to guess?
You start pushing it away.
You're like, oh my God. Yeah. You're like the, oh, fudge. I hear some kids in the background. So fudgesicles, right? Yeah, it's like, I call it manifestation sabotage. And I see this with Beachbody coaches as well, right? You start building momentum and you start you know, and guess what? It is so much more comfy and safe to stop. You know what? Tomorrow. You know what? Tomorrow will be better. Next week is a better time. You know what? 2 years from now, next month, you know, and like it's like, and so we have to stay in courage. You have to keep going and leaning against fear. When you manifest what you wanted, you are going to have those oh fudgesicles moments. And guess what? There's another thing no one tells us. You're going to get overwhelmed. Great. Celebrate that. Celebrate your overwhelm. You know what I mean? Like look back at all of those things that you had the courage to do. That's why we're building that list. Your ninja mind needs proof that the most magical things in your life come from you stepping into your courage portal, walking through the darkness of the fear and coming out into the light on the other side. We need the proof. It is absolutely essential that you have proof. Because that's the ninja mind of it. I have done so many things that now when I step into my courage portal and I'm trying to bring my ninja mind with me, because it's like, come with us, you know, or else it's just gonna wreak havoc if you don't start having conscious conversations with it. And you'll start to buy its baloney. And right. And so it's about, you can pull it in by going, have we ever led you astray? Have courage and I ever led you astray? Look back at this job we left. Look back at us taking this leap full time. Look back at this relationship we left. Look back at now we have babies, you know? And it's just like, okay. And so it's funny because even as I'm talking and I'm thinking about some of the things that are coming up for me, which we're going to talk about in a minute, things, how you can actually strategically put fear markers in so you can build your muscle. It like creates like a little in like the heart chakra or the, you know, in between, you know, like around their stomach area, starts creating a lot of energy because you're basically making an agreement with yourself that when you feel the fear, you're going to do it. You have to decide ahead of time what your agreement with fear is, because if you do not, then you have a higher likelihood of reverting to past patterns. And our past patterns are, oh crap, like tomorrow will be great, the next day will be great, a year from now, right? And so I also want, for everyone who's watching and listening, this doesn't just have to do with the big stuff. We're going to have big things in our life, but there's also going to be little things, you know, like this morning I woke up, and I'm really big on practicing what I preach, or striving to as much as I can. I'm also human, right? So I'm constantly developing this muscle as well. I woke up this morning and I was like, okay, I'm going to inspire some people with having a conscious relationship with fear. What am I doing consciously today to lean into fear? And I was like, that you have a small window when you ask yourself that question. You have a small window of time where some wisdom nuggets come up. The very first thing I said, the very first thing I heard was call Ray. Ray was a guy who someone connected me with a couple days ago. Someone said, hey, this guy needs a person to talk on his entrepreneurship panel somewhere here in Miami. And so I was like, oh, right, I haven't called him back yet. So it was like, boom, I called this guy immediately, right? It can be a phone call. It can be a post on social media. Like, it doesn't have to be something huge. It can be these little things, and the little things are what build your confidence. And really, in terms of creating the money that you want, creating the life that you want, creating the love that you want, it's all about having the confidence and trust in yourself that you can create these things. And that's about understanding of how you have this relationship with your ninja mind, which is the ninja mind is where self-doubt is. The ninja mind is where the what ifs and the yeah buts are. And what's interesting is, if you look back, can either of you think about a time, because I can feel intuitively this is going to come up with people who are watching. Can either of you think of a time where you tried something and it actually, the thing that you were afraid of did actually happen? Yeah.
Had to unmute myself, sorry. Yeah, I remember I worked for a corporate company. It was called MCI WorldCom. And I was at a company trip that I had earned. And I had been kind of going down the slippery slope. My stats were dropping. I wasn't as motivated. And I ran into the president of our company while mingling at this party that I had earned at this trip. And I don't know what it was, but it was like they launched this big contest for all of the sales reps in the entire United States. And I walked up to him, and I don't know what it was. I was so scared, but I told him, I said, I'm going to win that contest. And I said it to him, and I was like, why did I just say that? And I ended up winning. I ended up winning the entire contest, but I was terrified. I was like, what did I just do? I'm like, what if I don't? I'm going to look like a fool. Like, I can't believe I just said that to the president of our company. And then I won. So
you're putting into practice, like, again, this is the thing is, and what I love about what you just said was, it's like we're often afraid of our greatness.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Marianne Williamson talks about that. Like, sure, some people might be afraid of failure, but what I watch with a lot of people that I coach is they're actually afraid from a very subconscious layer and level. We're afraid of our greatness. We're afraid of our light. I struggle with this a lot because I have a huge light and I trigger people and I hurt people's feelings, or other people compare themselves to me. And it's painful for both of us because I'm like, that ninja mind starts going, should I be smaller? Should I not shine so bright so I don't trigger people, or, and so there's something really interesting that's going to happen too. When you start to create success, you may break rapport with some of your friends. I talk about this a lot in the book, right? And when you're growing your business, when you're shifting your body, when you're transforming, right? People are either going to come along with you, or they may not. That's another fear that we have, right? So sometimes we're actually afraid, like you said, I went up to him and I'm going to win this contest, and I did, right? Sometimes it's that fear that it's like, I want to manifest this epic love, and I'm manifesting it, and I'm like, okay, and I'm like, it gets hot every time I talk about it. It gets hot in here, and so it's just understanding, like, that's the thing. It's like when we vocalize what it is that we actually want, we usually do get it. So it's this thing about consciously saying, what do I want? What do I want? What do I want? To share with you an example of when you manifest something that you were afraid of and it actually does happen. Because I see this a lot with clients that I coach one-on-one, where they have, they're telling me a story. They're afraid of rejection, which I see is just something that holds us back across the board, which is also being afraid of how others are going to perceive us. And what I often see is where they tell me a story of a time they were rejected. It's usually like, they tell me this story and they go on, and I say, okay, where else did that happen in your life? And they're like, oh, that's it. And I'm like, oh, so one time something happened and you've carried this with you your entire life? And then I'm like, well, what are your reference points that when you follow your courage, it actually really allows you to experience magic moments? They tell me like 100, or 6 things or 3 things, but we could go on and on and on, right? But yet our ninja mind holds on to that one time where the thing that you were afraid of did happen. You got your heart broken, someone, or even like maybe someone put the thumbs down on your video. I hate when people do that. Crap, that means someone might do that on this. That's fine. That's fine. It's fine. And so it's just like, or someone doesn't like something that you're doing. It's like, that is going to happen. It's that piece. I saw this quote the other day where it's like, confidence isn't, they will like me. Confidence is, it doesn't matter if they don't like me, right? And so again, that's about developing that courage muscle, because a courage muscle is, you liking who you are. I say the definition of success is how much time you get to spend loving being you. And I promise you with 1,000,000% certainty, when you start to see how much courage you have by just developing this muscle, tiny steps here and here and here, you're going to love the shit out of yourself, because you're going to be you're going to blow your own mind by all the magic things that you can create. And also look at the people that end up being, that you get to surround yourself with, that are also in the arena. Because when you're in the arena, you magnetize other people who are in the arena. I want to spend time with people in the arena of life. I coach people one-on-one or at retreats of people who are in the arena. If you're not in the arena, I will not work with you. Now, that also means you're going to be afraid, right? Sometimes I think people are like, okay, I'll come to you and I'm not afraid. No, you're always going to be afraid. In fact, if you work with me, you'll experience more fear than you've ever experienced in your life, because I will push you to go further and further and further and further, which means you're more and more into the unknown. And that's what I'm encouraging this to be as well, right? For you to just say, like, light that fire underneath your butt again. Like, do it yourself. Like, do it for yourself. Do it for you so that you can really love being you and build your confidence more and more and more and more. Because when you do, at one point, there's another quote that's coming to mind, like, the things that you're tripping over today are things you're just going to glide by. And so if we need proof for that, we just go back to those things we wrote down. Those were things that you were so afraid of, but you did them. And now look at the other side of that. So there's an example. This is actually how my public speaking career got started. I had a friend who called me who said, hey, I was living in Chicago at the time. This was before I found the courage to move down to create my heaven on earth here in Miami. And they were down here in Miami and I was coming to town, and they said, hey, we're going to do this stand-up comedy thing. I know that you have a relationship with yourself where, you say yes to crazy stuff. So I figured you might come join me. In my head, what I thought I was signing up for was, this is a guy who now every Monday I go to his, I'm actually one of the facilitators now, but it's this goal setting group. So I thought it was going to be with the people in this goal setting group, and that each person was going to practice doing like stand-up comedy. And I'm like, I'm not a comedian, but sure, I'll play with this. So I get up, so I get to this place, and they're having their group, their weekly group meeting. And I was like, so are we going to do this stand up here? How's this going to work? He goes, oh no, I'm actually taking you to an open mic. You and I are going to do an open mic comedy stand up thing. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? It was a legit open mic night for comedians who were practicing their skits or whatever you call them. I don't even know what you call them. And their jokes. And what ended up happening was my ninja mind started telling me all these fears, like, oh my God, they're gonna boo you, they're gonna throw things at you, you're not a comedian, like all this stuff, right? So the guy that's the MC gets on stage and says, hey guys, tonight, as you know, this is the night where we really help comedians to really feel what works and what doesn't. So we're gonna be as generous as possible. And when their stuff sucks, we're gonna boo them. You guys, we're gonna boo them. We're gonna boo them so hard. And then what you'll notice is on the tables, there were these foam tomatoes. We also encourage that you throw these foam tomatoes at the people on stage, just because we really want you to get the feedback. And I was like, bah! So my biggest fears legitimately came true in that moment. It's rare that it does. Like I told you, my ninja mind usually brings me to like all of a sudden I'm homeless, which makes zero sense because I'm incredibly abundant. But for some reason, it just likes to do that to me. It takes me on this rabbit hole. But in this particular one, that rabbit hole, and we all have rabbit holes of fear, spiraled me down to this place where it ended up actually being what was going to happen, right? Booing and throwing things at me. I was one of the last people to go, so it took me hours of sitting in discomfort and looking for exit strategies. And this is all relevant to everything that we're going to, like in your Beachbody stuff and anything in love and anything that you do. You're going to go through this process where you have a fear. Some fears will actually be actualized. And then you're going to have a time period where you get exit strategies and opportunities to talk yourself out of whatever you actually know is going to stretch you. And I knew intuitively this was going to stretch me, but I didn't want to do it. Again, though, I have an agreement with myself that if I don't want to do something because I know it's going to stretch me and it's going to be uncomfortable, that I say yes to it. It puts me in all sorts of strange situations, but it's also how I've been able to grow my business to 18 countries and counting in very short period of time in comparison for most businesses. So because life really does favor the bold big time. And so I ended up getting on stage. I feel like I blacked out. I'm sober, so it's not from drink. I just from anxiety and nerves. And, but what was really cool was my friend's girlfriend was video recording what was happening. And I got to watch it. And when I watched it, I couldn't see any of my nerves. It was unbelievable. It was like what I was experiencing myself as versus what the world was experiencing, or how I got to experience myself through the lens of the world. It was so different. You couldn't see how nervous I was. You couldn't tell. I looked really comfortable on stage. And the guy who got up right after me said, well, she may not be the best comedian, which I had said from the beginning. I had told them the story while I was there. He said, but damn if she's not the best speaker I've ever seen. And I just was like, huh. And in that moment, a new identity was born. I was like, speaker. I think he said public speaker too. So it was like, I started going, oh, I could do this again. And I was on a high. And so what I would love for everyone to really get to experience is, and reframe is, you might be misunderstanding and or misinterpreting or confusing exhilaration with anxiety. You might actually think that posting something that's going to be raw and vulnerable, or inviting people to a challenge group, or doing something that's outside of your comfort zone, you might think that it's anxiety that's coming up. What if it's not anxiety? What if that feeling that you have, that feeling of being on a ledge and about to just jump off, what if that's excitement? And so, there's a neuro-linguistic technique that I use when I'm about to do something, is I'm like, I'm excited, I'm excited, I'm excited, I'm excited, I'm excited. Like right before I do it, right before I hit send to the editor, to send my book. You could do the same thing with posts right before you're about to post something, like, I'm excited, I'm excited, I'm excited, and you just do it, right? So it's about putting things into application. And oftentimes just realizing that the things that you think are going to take, when the ninja mind, it's like the ninja mind might be right 10%. I'm being really generous when I say 10%. 10% or less of the time, your ninja mind might be right. The fears that you have might actually come true. It's about choosing, are you going to let that potential 10% or less stop you from living a life of 90% greatness and joy and love by you just following whatever it is that you're being guided to do. And every single person I've ever met in the Beachbody community, every single one of them, there's a reason that you started this journey. And when I watch people, you know, go forward and pull back and go forward and pull back, what ends up happening is, and this is in entrepreneurship of all kinds, it's you're forgetting why you started. And so I would really encourage you at this retreat to just continue playing with anchoring back, taking some time to journal around what was your why, and or maybe now what is your why. And the reason I say that is when I started my business, I had a particular why. And it served me for the past 5 or 6 years. My life has changed so drastically in the past year. I mean, I left a relationship with someone that I really love. We just weren't on the same path anymore. I left that relationship. I moved across the country. I sold or donated a lot of my stuff, and I'm in this new place. I'm making new friends. I'm creating new roots. My why for my business doesn't serve me anymore, the one that I had. So I'm giving myself permission to reinvent and rewrite the why. And I feel like we don't often give ourselves that permission in life. And so taking some time to actually sit down and write out your new why, really going back, why are you doing this? What's your intention? What's your reason? What do you want to inspire others to do more of, or be more of, or feel more of, or experience more of? And why? How will you benefit? How will your life be different? How will the world be different? How will other people's lives be different? And it's something that I think that if you get stuck, or when you get stuck, getting stuck is inevitable. When you get stuck, it's knowing that you're just disconnected from the why, either because that particular why is no longer your why anymore. Like the reason you're doing it, the vision of doing it has to be greater than the fear. And you can consciously construct that. And if you look back at the things that I had you write down before, about the things that were on, you were on the fear side of the hump and now you're on the courage side of it, there was a process that you took. And so I would challenge each person to take some time, even if it's just pausing the recording, but taking some time to look back and see what your process of overcoming your fears was. And the reason that I say that is we all have our own custom approach that really works for us of how we overcome our fear. And when we reverse engineer it, that's what the book is like a 6-year journey reverse engineered, so that I could share it with other people, because it was what I was looking for when I awoke into wanting more. It was what I was looking for when I said, who am I? What do I want? How do I create a life that I love? How do I create a version of myself I love? I have no idea. And I went on a journey, collected tools, collected different approaches and things, and I share them in the book. So we all have a process, if we look back, that each time we've gone from fear to courage, we have different things that have really worked for us. And you can go through that process faster if you know what works for you and actually just start implementing those things. Does that make sense? So I would encourage you to take some time and some exercises to play with. What is your why? So what's the vision? What's the reason you're doing this? And also, what was your process of the things that you wrote down that you overcame? How did you get through that? Because you'll start to notice patterns, and then you'll be able to really, it's like life hacking. You'll be able to life hack your own process. And then the final piece to play with here and leave you with is asking yourself two different processes. One is looking backwards, let's say even in the past week. So maybe taking some time for each of you just to write down just really quick, right? In the past week, what are the things that you've done that have scared you? Even if it's little, having a difficult conversation with someone, maybe there was a post that you put up. And scary can also feel like vulnerable. Scary can also be, it brings up a little exhilaration and anxiety, right? It's like, what did you do in the past week? Also, take a look at in the past month, what are some things that you've done that have scared you?
Do you want us to share them? A couple
Yeah.
of them? Okay. I just wrote down a few that I could think of. So sending a follow-up message to a dentist. He commented on one of my posts about 80-day obsession, and I sent him a message, and then he never responded. So I sent a follow-up message, and he's like, "Oh yes, thank you. I'm in Florida. I'm going to order on Tuesday." So I was nervous though, because he's like this very successful dentist in Naperville, so that was scary. And it wasn't anything major, but it's just always scary for me. And then I reached out to a gym owner, a person that was on I call it my chicken list. I reached out to him and asked him point blank if he would try Shakeology to give me feedback. And with the potential of selling it in his 2 gym locations in Lincoln, Nebraska. And he agreed that he would try it. So that was another one. And then anytime I have to speak, like even in a setting like this where it's the 3 of us, I'm being recorded, even though it's, you know what I mean, very simple. When I have to run team calls and I have eyes on me or any type of speaking thing, which I've done several times, I always get that nervous feeling in my stomach. So that's scary for me, but I do it anyways. So
Yes. What about you, Jen?
One of the things is that I started to go out on a different limb with a different process with email marketing, and it's not really seen as I don't know a lot of people that do it. So just doing something that's different and not the norm is super, super scary, and spending money on myself when it comes to personal growth. I spent a lot of money in 2017 that I didn't have. And I just felt like I was stuck in a rut and just didn't have any forward mobility. And I said, I either have to throw all of my, change into this, or I have to figure out something completely different, because I just need to take a risk, because I just felt like I wasn't moving anywhere. So just taking a risk and spending money that I don't have, not knowing the outcome, was hugely scary for me.
Yeah.
That's all I can think of right now.
So yes, right. What I love is that you're both giving different examples that will inspire people to be a diving board into their own idea pool, right? Is sometimes, one of the things that I think is really common is the ninja mind is also going to tell you that someone that is a leader, in which the 3 of us are leaders in our own communities, right? So if you're a leader in a community, the ninja mind often tells us that those people are, they don't experience anxiety or have any fears, and it's not scary for them to do live talks. Or, oh, she can spend the money and then, she'll figure it out, because that's just how she, that's her personality. She'll make it work. And it's just like, hold on a second. I always tell people that's really insulting. So when someone tells me like, because I could actually feel when someone's like, oh, what do you know? Then I'm like, that is so insulting, because it takes so much, like no matter how many times you do something, it still takes courage to do that thing. Right. And to like exercise that muscle. So that's it. That's why I keep saying a post, even in the Beachbody community, it takes courage every single post. So it's celebrating it every time versus like judging yourself. Like, I shouldn't be feeling fear anymore because I've done this 20 times. No, stop. It's okay if every single time you have fear. It's okay if you've done something 105 times and you still experience fear around it. And so it's giving yourself permission to say, I'm exercising that muscle. I'm exercising that muscle, because in doing that, you'll actually be able to have everything that you want. Also, like having, you can practice in your personal life and it will actually impact your courage. It compounds your courage in your business arena as well. If you're like, I'm going to have a difficult conversation with a partner, I'm going to share with someone that they hurt my feelings, I'm going to, whatever, these are all scary things, right? It just, every time you do something that your intuition, and I could tell Jen, your intuition told you, invest in yourself. Your ninja mind was just like, we don't have any money. What are you doing? And so the more that you can give yourself permission to listen to your intuition that's guiding you, it's the idea. It's, I see a lot, and in business, I get this all the time. I'll get an idea and I'm like, oh my God, this is golden. And then I don't do anything with it. So I've learned now, like, write it down and come back to it, so I don't lose it. It's the same thing in your business. It's like, if you have an idea of a post, create it, post it. The sooner that you can do something, it's like the 1-2 go. When you bungee jump, I take people on a lot of crazy adventures. So we did bungee jumping in South Africa. They tell you that if you're on the ledge and at 2, you haven't gone, they push you on 3. And I was like, you don't have to worry. I know what my ninja mind does after 2, so I'm going. Like, I will not give myself time. The more time I give myself, the more likely it is that I'm not going to do it. That includes a difficult conversation with someone, or, because then it's like, yeah, but, and it like builds up all this thing. So even a post, it's just understanding to have the courage. And there's this final piece is knowing you can actually create fear markers to say, okay, this week, so it's looking at today, what can you do that will allow you to exercise your relationship with fear and shift it into courage? This week, what can you do to exercise your relationship with fear and build that courage muscle? This year, et cetera, right? I've been living that way for the past year. And like I said, I left a relationship. I'm totally changing the entire business model right now because I'm in transition. So the business is in transition, in a new location, in a new relationship. So it's understanding that giving yourself permission ahead of time, deciding ahead of time what you're going to do that is potentially scary, or whatever language, right? But it's just because when we use that language, if it's scary, it's going to bring up a little fear, but then it also allows you to go, I'm excited. And you just do it anyways. And then also figuring out what works for you. So again, leveraging those things that you did. So for me, when I look back at the things that I've done that required a lot of courage and being bold, it was because I told someone I was going to do it. It was, I had an accountability buddy. I had a community of people I was trying to inspire. Which is really cool when you are a coach and then you have coaches underneath you, it's just like, well, you have people who are looking up to you, or if, and so it's just understanding that there are different ways that you can leverage it. For me, I also, for whatever reason, music, like if I'm dancing and jamming and I've got music and I start visualizing and I'm building it into my body, and I have songs that like really build my confidence, I do that right before I'm going to hit send on something, or right before I'm going to sit down. And, so it's understanding, it's looking back, even if it's the tiny things. When you first started, maybe like looking back at the days where it was easier to post something or follow up with someone or invite someone. What was going on? Get really conscious, because what I can tell you is on those days you were doing something, even if it was just an unconscious competence, you were doing something that was allowing you to make that thing easier. And so when we look at what that was, we can actually strategically create that. And so, and then the very last piece is just looking at scanning your day for what feels really crappy today. Like every night before I go to bed, I'm always like, what felt really crappy today that I want to create less of? And what felt really amazing that I want to create more of? And oftentimes you'll find the things that you face your fears, you're going to want to create more of those, and when you'll find on your shit list the things where it was like, I didn't have the courage to do the thing I wanted to do. And you'll just keep getting new reference points and new reference points and new reference points for how good it feels when you actually do the new stuff, when you face the unknown, when you learn something new, and harvesting the lessons from that 10% or less, when the things that went air quotes wrong, it's never wrong because it's always happening for you. But the times where maybe the fear that you had actualized, to go back and harvest it. Great. Okay, so where was your intuition guiding you? Where was your intuition guiding you that you didn't listen? Because I've never worked with someone where their intuition was guiding them somewhere and it didn't end up being magical, even if it was a bump that was like a pivotal bump that allowed them to grow. So harvesting your lessons. So, so that's all I have in case, unless you guys have any questions.
Would you be able to share your link or if you have a link to buy your book for anyone that's interested in the chat section? Because I know that'll pop up in the recording as well.
In the chat section, okay.
I think that's where right, Jen? Is that where you should do it, in the chat? Or I can write it down too and just give it to everyone. But that way, anyone who watches this, because I'm also going to share this in our team page once I get the recording.
I would need to pull the link because it's on Amazon. It's just Epic Sexy You on Amazon. But I could also get a link and I can send it to you. That will be like
I can find it too as well. It's fine.
Okay.
I just didn't know if you had like an actual website or.
I could pop.
I ordered mine on Amazon, so I wasn't sure.
Got it. I can also pop Epic. So the website is epicsexyu.com. So there you could, but if you just like want a direct link to Amazon, there's another way. But epicsexyu.com will also give you an idea of what the brand is and the movement behind it. And it's pretty great.
Fantastic. Now, I can't think of any questions. This is all, I was kind of taking notes. I know I'm going to listen to this again. I'll take more notes, but this was fantastic information. I always love listening to you talk.
Oh, thanks, love.
And hopefully if they want to reach out to you or if anyone wants to work one-on-one with you, do you want them to use that website to contact you?
Yep. So there will be a contact page on there. And if they shoot me, it'll just go straight to my email.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. I can't think of any other questions. Just making sure people can get a hold of you. Jen, did you have anything?
I don't have any questions, but I wanted to tell you something. When you and I were talking, and Morgan and I, and she had told me about how I said, I know, and then I went on to the rest of the sentence. That was such a huge sign for me because I was just reading in a book last night before I went to bed about the words that you should use when you want to move forward. And I know I highlighted in yellow. And I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. Like, hello, someone's talking to me here.
Yeah, you'll find oftentimes that when you're being guided, if you're missing the clues, it'll keep coming at you. Ways. That's where that metaphor of like a brick upside your head comes from, because life will keep sending it to you until you get it.
That was a brick.
Yeah. That's great. I love it.
Thank you.
Yes, of course.
Thank you so much for your time. Very much appreciated. I know that everyone watching this at a retreat tomorrow, and then anyone on our team is going to really love this. So
awesome. Well, thank you for asking me to join you ladies. I'm happy to come back anytime, and have a wonderful retreat.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.